A 20-year-old was killed back in June, and 4 men have since been indicted. CBS 4's Carrie Codd is in Fort Lauderdale with the story.
Blues great David Honeyboy Edwards has died at his home in Chicago.
Some stars once shone brightly in the music sky, only to fade away in the loneliest darkness. The stories of the 15 Black R&B singers I'm about to share are proof of that. They were golden talents, but their lives ended in tragedy, with no loved ones by their side. Their deaths are painful tales, full of mysteries that leave us questioning, why did these voices, admired by the world, have to depart in such utter solitude? What's the value of fame when success comes hand in hand with tragedy? Brace yourself before hearing these stories, because the harsh reality behind the glamour might bring you to tears. 15. David Honeyboy Edwards' legend passes silently, unknown to all. David Honeyboy Edwards was seen as the last living soul of Delta blues, a rare witness who stood side by side with Robert Johnson and roamed America with a simple guitar. He didn't just play a role in a pivotal era of American music, he deeply shaped the rise of R&B and rock and roll. Honored with a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, he embodied a fiery, vibrant musical era rich with identity. But as years passed, the stage lights dimmed, blues faded from the mainstream, and the name Honeyboy slipped into obscurity. In his final years, he lived quietly in Chicago, no longer performing, ignored by the media, surrounded only by the stillness of a small home and dusty memories. On August 29, 2011, sometime in the morning or noon, no one knows the exact moment David Edwards took his last breath in the home where he spent his final years. He died of congestive heart failure, a common illness in the elderly. But what makes his death haunting isn't the cause, it's how it happened. The house was silent, with no family by his side, no one to witness his final moment. His passing was only discovered later when a healthcare worker stopped by for a routine check. By then, it was too late. Even after his death, not a single condolence came from the famous stars who once knew him. The media brushed over his passing with a few cold, brief lines, distant and detached. No grand memorial was held. No one stepped up to honor his immense contributions to American music. He left as if the world had forgotten him, as if his legacy was just a faded memory in a dusty, forgotten notebook. It wasn't just a death, it was a painful end to a life of heartfelt dedication, uncelebrated and unrecognized. David Honeyboy Edwards vanished quietly, leaving a vast void no one remembered to fill, and that, perhaps, is the deepest tragedy of all. 14. Billie Holiday dies in despair, surrounded by police and illness. No one allowed near. Billie Holiday was the unmistakable voice of her era, Lady Day, who turned songs like Strange Fruit and God Bless the Child into anthems for a silenced generation. She wasn't just a jazz and R&B icon, she was a symbol of pain, struggle, and pride. But behind the glamour was a life torn apart by violence, addiction, racism, and wounds no one could heal. In May 1959, Billie was admitted to Metropolitan Hospital in New York with severe liver and heart disease. Her body was ravaged after years of drowning in drugs and alcohol. But what's more horrific is that police stormed her hospital room, arresting her on her deathbed for drug possession. They barred all visitors, no friends, no fans. She was completely isolated. Her hospital bed became a prison cell, and in that relentless pursuit, Billie Holiday met her cruel end. Around 3:10 a.m. on July 17, 1959, Billie took her final breath in a coma. She died of liver failure, the inevitable result of a life of self-destruction. But more terrifying than her death was how it happened alone, under surveillance, branded a criminal until her last moment. No one held her hand, only cold handcuffs and the indifferent stares of guards. The media reported it, but no one dared voice outrage. Billie's passing was shrouded in silence. Though her voice once screamed against injustice and hatred, an icon was extinguished not just by illness, but by a system that sought to destroy her. If she'd been properly cared for, loved, or protected, Billie Holiday might have continued crafting music that gave goosebumps. Her death wasn't just an end, it was a warning, a deep cut into American music history. She wasn't killed only by drugs or alcohol, but by the apathy, cruelty, and prejudice that hounded her from beginning to end. 13. Phyllis Hyman ends life before a show, leaves alone with a haunting suicide note. Phyllis Hyman was a one-of-a-kind voice in R&B and soul. She left millions speechless with hits like You Know How to Love Me and Living All Alone, with beauty, talent, and fame. She seemed unstoppable, but behind the stage lights was a wounded soul battling depression, loneliness, and the crushing pressure of a ruthless industry. On the afternoon of June 30th, 1986, as the world awaited her at the Apollo Theater, Phyllis was alone in her New York apartment. She wasn't preparing for the show. She was preparing for a farewell. 3 pages of a suicide note emerged not bitter, but filled with apologies and profound exhaustion. She said she couldn't go on anymore. No one knows exactly what she was thinking, only that she took a massive dose of sedatives mixed with alcohol. It was a resolute choice. All day, no one could reach her, no texts, no calls, only when her manager came looking, worried about her absence from the performance. Did they find Phyllis's body? Motionless, cold, alone, no chance to save her. No one imagined she'd choose to end it this way right before a show, with countless fans awaiting her voice. Once again, fame couldn't save an artist from the abyss of depression. No one truly saw how desperate she was. A voice that could have soared further was swallowed by silence, by a mental illness no one could pull her from. Phyllis Hyman didn't die from weakness. She died because she'd been forcing herself to be strong for too long, unnoticed. She left at 45 carrying all her unfinished dreams. All that remained was a suicide note, a voice forever silenced, and a loss nothing could replace. 12. Dinah Washington dies in bed from drug overdose in the night, alone at 39. Dinah Washington is an essential name in R&B and blues history, the Queen of the Blues. She silenced generations with What a Difference a Day Makes and dozens of other hits. Grammy Awards, major stages, fame, she had it all, except peace of mind. In the early hours of December 14, 1963, amid Detroit's freezing winter, Dinah was found dead in her bed at home. Her body showed no signs of struggle. No one was there. No final words, just hours earlier. She'd been awake. Still the fierce, fiery, yet unstable Dinah, living with her 7th husband, NFL star Dick Night Train Lane. But that night, he'd left the house. Dinah stayed alone. The investigation revealed she'd taken a mix of sedatives amobarbital and secobarbital with alcohol, a dangerous habit she'd kept for years to manage stress, lose weight, and chase fleeting sleep. This time, the dose was too much. Whether accidental or from sheer exhaustion, her body couldn't take it. When Lane returned at dawn, she didn't wake. Dinah was gone in silence. Christmas was days away, but her home held only desolation and a brutal end. Not a suicide, but not clearly an accident either. It was the result of years of anxiety, pill addiction, 7 failed marriages, and the pressure of a fame others mistook for paradise. Dinah Washington left at 39, her star still shining. Leaving an unanswered question, did anyone truly know the woman behind the crown? 11. Sam Cooke legend shot dead in a motel in the night at 33. Sam Cooke was the king of soul and R&B icon who broke barriers for black artists in America's music scene. With classics like A Change Is Gonna Come and You Send Me, he founded his own label, fought for civil rights, and was admired nationwide for his talent and courage. But behind the spotlight, his life was far from calm. Around 3 a.m. on December 11, 1964, Sam Cooke collapsed dead in the office of a rundown Los Angeles motel. A bullet pierced his chest, his body clad only in a coat and shoes, nothing else. The 33-year-old music legend died in a bizarre, brutal scene, still riddled with mysteries. The night before, he dined with a young woman, Elisa Boyer. They left the restaurant and drove to the Hacienda Motel around 2 a.m. Events unfolded quickly and confusingly. Boyer claimed Cooke tried to force himself on her. Panicked, she fled the room, taking his money and clothes. Enraged, half-conscious, Cooke stormed out, nearly naked in just a coat and shoes, banging on the manager's office door, searching for her. The motel manager, 55-year-old Bertha Franklin, said Cooke went berserk, threatening her. A scuffle erupted. She fired 3 shots. 1 bullet struck Cooke's chest. Minutes later, the man who sang of freedom and dreamed of justice lay dead on the cold tile floor. No friends, no family, just a lonely, bloody death with endless questions. Police ruled it self-defense, but millions didn't buy it. Some said he was set up. Others believed it was the price of fighting for black rights. No one could accept a legend dying so wretchedly in a cheap motel, in the dead of night, barely clothed. 10. Donny Hathaway, R&B genius, ends tragically at 33. Donny Hathaway, a soul and R&B genius, was famed for timeless songs like A Song for You and iconic duets with Roberta Flack like Where is the Love. His silky voice and brilliant songwriting made him a music icon, but offstage, his life was a dark battle with schizophrenia and depression. On January 13, 1979, a seemingly normal day at New York's Essex House Hotel turned into an unforgettable tragedy. Donny had just finished recording with Flack and dined with colleagues in a calm atmosphere. But when everyone left, he was alone in room 2707 on the 15th floor. The room's window had no bars, a small detail that proved fatal. Around 7 p.m., no one expected it, but Donny fell from the window, plummeting 15 stories. He crashed onto the icy sidewalk below. A painful end, no scream, no chance to intervene. When hotel staff found his body, no friends or family were nearby to break the news, only the cold loneliness and the torment that had haunted him for years. Police investigated thoroughly, finding no signs of foul play. Everything pointed to a tragic pattern in the dark fight against schizophrenia and depression. Friends and family had seen him struggle with hallucinations and lose control. That likely drove his desperate act. Donny Hathaway's death was a shattering shock to music, marking the loss of a supreme voice and composer. He left a wife and 2 young kids, a lasting musical legacy, but also a heavy tale of loneliness and brutal mental pain. 9. Static Major R&B star dies suddenly in a routine medical procedure. Stephen Static Major Garrett was a cornerstone of 1990s and 2000s R&B and hip-hop, a singer, songwriter, and producer who crafted hits like Lil Wayne's Lollipop, a member of Playa. His creativity never stopped. With a budding solo career and stable family life, no one expected him to leave so soon. On February 25, 2008, at Baptist Health Hospital in Louisville, a routine day became a disaster. Static Major checked in for a simple catheter-related procedure, one everyone thought would be quick, but it was the start of a horrific chain of events. During the procedure, he suffered an extremely rare complication, a severe allergic reaction, possibly to anesthesia or anaphylactic shock. It happened so fast no one could react, from a minor procedure. Static Major slipped into critical condition. Doctors rushed to save him, but all efforts failed. The music star, expected to keep churning out heart-shaking hits, passed quietly, with no family by his side in his final moments. His death stunned not just his family but the entire fan base. A talent cut short by a medical complication in a routine procedure. No clear explanation emerged, and details of the procedure stayed private, sparking questions. Why did a simple procedure end so tragically? The suddenness and senselessness made Static Major's death one of modern R&B's most unbelievable tragedies. 8. Florence Ballard, golden voice of the Supremes, fades in loneliness and poverty. Florence Ballard, a founding member of the legendary Supremes, helped create timeless hits like Stop in the Name of Love, but her life wasn't as radiant as the stage. Kicked out of the group in 1967, Ballard struggled with a failed solo career, poverty, alcoholism, and depression. By 1976, she lived alone with her 3 young kids, trying to rebuild amid harsh pressures. On the night of February 21, 1976, Ballard felt intense chest pain and shortness of breath, but no one thought it was serious enough for a hospital. By the morning of February 22nd, she was alone in her Detroit home. Her kids were with neighbors, leaving no one by her side. Then, disaster struck. Florence collapsed suddenly, with no one there to help. A blood clot in her coronary artery, a silent killer, ended her life as heart disease and stress overwhelmed her body. Friends and neighbors found her motionless and rushed her to Henry Ford Hospital. But it was too late. The once iconic voice was silenced forever at 10:05 a.m., no family by her side, no final comfort, just loneliness and poverty surrounding the death of an R&B legend. Florence Ballard's death was a painful tragedy, a bitter warning about the cost of fleeting fame. Behind the glittering stage was a life of tears, conflict, and despair, dragging her health and spirit to ruin. Her death wasn't just a loss for music, but a sad end to years of isolation, starkly showing the fall of a brilliant talent left behind. 7. Lisa, Left Eye Lopes, horrific crash snuffs out TLC's creative flame. Lisa Left Eye Lopes, the soul of R&B powerhouse TLC, was famed for hits like Waterfalls and No Scrubs. Not just a talented rapper, she gave the group its unique spark, but offstage, she faced personal troubles, battling herself and striving to carve out a solo career. On the afternoon of April 25, 2002, everything collapsed in an instant. Lisa was driving a Mitsubishi Montero SUV on a 2-lane road near La Ceiba, Honduras. She was alone, with no family, friends, or assistants, on a trip for rest, charity, and filming a documentary. She was seeking herself after life's upheavals. Then tragedy struck without warning. A truck appeared in the opposite lane, and she swerved sharply to avoid it. The SUV lost control, flipping multiple times, spinning wildly on the road. Lisa wasn't wearing a seatbelt. The violent crash threw her out, her head and neck critical weak points slamming into the pavement, causing fatal brain and neck injuries. In a split second, TLC's creative flame was extinguished at the scene. Around 5:55 p.m., despite locals and medics arriving quickly, they were powerless. No one could save a talent on the cusp of rebirth, a soul fighting to overcome her darkness. A horrific tragedy closed her story. Lisa Left Eye Lopes, one of R&B's most impactful voices, was taken by an unavoidable car crash. Her death left pain for family, friends, and fans, and a massive loss for global music. A vibrant, brilliant talent was cruelly snuffed out by fate's merciless twist. 6. Otis Redding tragic plane crash sweeps away R&B legend at 26. Otis Redding was an unmistakable name in soul and R&B history. With hits like Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay and Try a Little Tenderness, he captivated black and white audiences alike. At his career's peak, Otis performed tirelessly, with the world awaiting his next triumphs. Then, on December 10, 1967, a horrific tragedy struck. Otis and his band, the Bar-Kays, boarded a flight from Cleveland to Madison, Wisconsin. The weather was awful thick fog and pouring rain, but a tight schedule forced them to fly. The twin-engine Beechcraft H-18, piloted by Richard Fraser, carried 7 people, all band members and staff, with no family among them. Around 3:25 p.m., as the plane prepared to land in Madison, things went wrong. In dense fog, it lost contact with the tower. Within minutes, the plane suffered a catastrophic failure. By 3:28 p.m., it crashed into the freezing waters of Lake Monona, miles from shore. The impact was so violent no one could react. Otis and 6 others perished, an unimaginable loss for their families and music. Only Ben Cauley, a Bar-Kays member, miraculously survived, swimming to shore as the others sank. Otis Redding's death stunned the world, not just for losing a talent, but for ending a rising star at 26 with so much left to give. The exact cause remains a mystery, but bad weather and pilot error played major roles. A cruel mix of nature and human failure stole a soul icon, leaving deep grief for his wife and 3 young kids. 5. Tammi Terrell, tragic death of young R&B star tormented by brain cancer. Tammi Terrell was one of Motown's sweetest voices, known for iconic duets with Marvin Gaye like Ain't No Mountain High Enough and You're All I Need to Get By, a soul music gem. She was a pride of music lovers. But behind the glamour was a harrowing battle with brain cancer. From 1967, Tammi's life took a dark turn. During a performance, she collapsed on stage, shocking everyone. Soon after, she was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor. A grueling fight began. In 3 years, she endured 8 surgeries, chemotherapy, and countless painful treatments. Her health plummeted, her weight dropping to a shocking 84 pounds. Her sweet voice faded, and the stage lights grew distant. By early 1970, Tammi was admitted to Graduate Hospital in Philadelphia, where she lay with a tumor that kept growing. Doctors could only watch, trying to sustain her day by day. She was utterly broken, barely clinging to life. On March 16, 1970, she passed in absolute solitude, with no family by her side, only nurses and staff at her bedside. Tammi's death wasn't just the end of a life, but a heartbreaking tragedy of a young talent robbed of her future. leaving endless pain for fans and the music world. She left at just 24 at the height of her rise. Her quiet death in that hospital still echoes with grief for those who loved her voice. 4. Aaliyah, tragic death in overloaded plane crash at career's peak. Aaliyah, the princess of R&B, was known worldwide for hits like One in a Million and Try Again. Not just a singer, she was an actress and fashion icon, hitting her career's peak at 22. In 2001, as her path seemed boundless, tragedy struck. On August 24, 2001, Aaliyah and her film crew went to the Bahamas to shoot the Rock the Boat video. All seemed fine until she decided to leave early, flying to Miami instead of staying overnight. The chosen plane. A small Cessna 402B was controversial from the start, overloaded beyond its limit. With concerns about poor maintenance, danger loomed. But Aaliyah's schedule pushed forward. On August 25th, around 6:50 p.m., she and 8 others, pilot, stylists, film crew, and staff, boarded the Cessna. No family was with her on this final flight. Just after takeoff, the plane lost balance, crashing into a marsh 200 feet from the runway. Erupting in flames, explosions and smoke created a horrific scene, leaving no survivors. Aaliyah and all aboard died instantly, their bodies charred beyond saving. The investigation sparked outrage. The plane was grossly overloaded. Pilot Luis Morales III was unqualified, and evidence showed he'd used cocaine. These factors created an unavoidable disaster, snatching a young R&B icon in an instant. Aaliyah's death was a massive shock to the music industry, a talent buried forever in the fire and roar of negligence and cruel fate. 3. Juice WRLD dies from drug overdose amid police raid at airport. Juice WRLD, the young rapper behind hits like Lucid Dreams and Robbery, was a new icon for youth, blending rap and R&B with raw emotions about love and mental pain. He openly battled addiction to painkillers, an inescapable part of his life. Then, at just 21, tragedy struck. On the night of December 7, 2019, after a show in Los Angeles, Juice WRLD and his crew boarded a private flight back to Chicago. The plane landed at Midway Airport around 1:30 a.m. on December 8th. But the mood wasn't calm. Police, suspecting drugs aboard, began a search. Juice WRLD in the terminal was on edge. Around 2 a.m., witnesses said he suddenly convulsed and collapsed. Rumors spread fast he'd swallowed multiple Percocet pills to hide evidence from police. That reckless act was the final step to the abyss. Medics quickly administered Narcan, a drug to reverse opioid overdoses, but Juice WRLD was unresponsive. Rushed to Advocate Christ Hospital. He fought for life until, at 3:15 a.m., he was pronounced dead. The cause was clear: a seizure from an overdose of oxycodone and codeine, painkillers he'd struggled with before. No family was there, only airport staff witnessing the horror. Juice WRLD's death was a devastating shock to family, friends, and millions of fans worldwide. A young, promising talent was torn apart by pressure, addiction, and temptation. On a cold night, music lost a blazing star. 2. XXXTentacion gunned down in bold robbery outside motorcycle dealership. XXXTentacion, a controversial yet undeniably talented rapper, shook hip-hop with tracks like Sad and Look at Me, despite a life tied to scandals, violence, and unresolved conflicts. 2018 marked his attempt to change, with charity work and a more responsible path, but a swift, brutal tragedy destroyed that effort. On June 18, 2018, around 3:55 p.m., XXXTentacion drove his sleek black BMW Y8 to Riva Motorsports in Deerfield Beach, Florida. He was there to pick out a new motorcycle, a small step in rebuilding his life. No one knew it would be his last trip. As he prepared to leave, 2 armed men appeared not for directions, but to rob. Dedrick Williams and Michael Boatwright, names now infamous in a shocking murder case, blocked his path, demanding money and valuables. A tense struggle erupted, breathless and brief. In a flash, Boatwright drew a handgun, firing multiple shots at XXXTentacion. He slumped in his luxury car, alone, helpless. The attackers didn't stop, snatching a Louis Vuitton bag, a clear sign of a planned, cold-blooded robbery. Store staff and passers-by, hearing shots, frantically called 911, but no one dared stop the crime. Medics arrived at 4:07 p.m., but all efforts failed. XXXTentacion was pronounced dead at 5:30 p.m. at Broward Health North. A young talent was ripped away by gunfire in broad daylight in a crowded place. XXXTentacion's story isn't just a violent tragedy, but a warning about the thorny paths young stars often tread. At 20, full of potential yet plagued by trouble, he left alone, leaving unresolved debates among fans and the global music world. One, LaShawn Daniels' tragic highway crash takes legendary songwriter. LaShawn Daniels, tied to massive hits like Destiny's Child, Say My Name, and Michael Jackson's You Rock My World, was an irreplaceable creative soul in 1990s and 2000s R&B, a brilliant songwriter and producer. He was a family man with a wife and 3 kids. But on September 3, 2019, all joy ended on a lonely South Carolina highway. That day, LaShawn was simply driving home when his car veered, slamming into a rock wall. No one was around. No other vehicles nearby. No one knows exactly what happened in that horrific crash. The impact was so severe he died instantly, alone, with only his smoking car and the eerie silence of the road. The news spread fast. His wife, April Daniels, announced his passing on social media the next day, September 4th, but couldn't detail the cause. The crash stunned the world. Police and media stayed quiet, leaving fans with questions. Weather driver error, a hit and run, all speculation, no certainty. But one thing is undeniable: death stole a giant talent the music world still awaited. His family held a funeral in grief, while fans mourned an artist who left a deep mark on R&B's heart. LaShawn Daniels left at 41 a cruel end for a genius songwriter. They once moved the world with their voices, but in the end, they left in chilling silence and solitude. These stories don't just break fans' hearts, they remind us of the dark corners behind the stage lights. If you remember these stars, leave a comment to honor them. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to catch my next videos, where I'll keep uncovering the darkest truths of the entertainment world.